We have joining us on the program Dr. Brian Reuben, who is one of those advocating for diaspora voting, as the CEO of Africa Economic Summit Group, joins us virtually on the program. You're welcome to the show, Dr. Reuben.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Well, there's a lot to talk about in Nigeria today, and I'm sure you're keeping track, even though you're not in the country. There's a river situation, there's the economy, security, and all of that. But I imagine that what concerns you primarily would be the diaspora voting, because there's a lot of talk about politics come 2027, and you're hoping that you'll be able to at least add your voice to who gets to lead Nigeria. So first, speak to us about just where you're at in this whole process, and how optimistic are you that this will eventually happen for 2027?
Well, thank you for having me. You see, Nigeria's democracy is at historic crossroads. Today, with over 17 million Nigerians live abroad, sending home more than $20 billion each year. I mean, that's bigger than some countries in Africa's GDP. Investing in businesses, mentoring startups, and serving as informal ambassadors for our country. Yet, despite these massive contributions, they cannot vote in our federal elections. This is not just a gap in policy, it is a democratic deficit. For decades, millions of Nigerians with a stake in our future have been silenced, not because they committed any crime, not because they did something wrong, but simply because geography, that's all. But now with the constitutional amendment for diaspora voting, moving through the National Assembly, that gives hope. We have a historic chance to change that narrative before the 2027 general elections. The question I have is, are we going to act now, or are we going to let inertia again win?
But here's a question, because there have been debates back and forth about diaspora voting. As I said, the credibility of the election is always at the heart of that debate. How credible will these elections be if we have to do it outside of the country and then bring it inside and all of that? And others have said, well, we've seen this tried in other climes. It's not a big deal. But I want to speak to something that came up recently and, caught my attention. And that's the fact that some have said, well, we've seen Nigerians in diaspora come home for a dirty December. They come home for, birthdays, weddings, and the rest. So is it too much to ask them to come back home during the elections to vote?
Some of us actually do that. However, you will realize that everybody didn't come for dirty December. Everybody didn't come for birthdays. And you see, diaspora voting is a strategic asset. The Nigerians in diaspora is one of the most economically powerful in the world. So beyond remittances, which fund education, healthcare, infrastructure, and small businesses, they bring skills, technology, and global networks. So enfranchising this category of people is not charity, it's a smart policy. Citizens who can vote are more likely to channel their resources into long-term productive investments and strengthen our economy. So this is not really just trying to do because other countries are doing. It's a strategic imperative. It is a fundamental human right. Nigeria cannot practice a landlocked democracy when her citizens are global. You understand? So it's a right that is due to our people, excluding millions, purely because of location, undermines the credibility of Nigeria's democracy. Countries like Ghana, Kenya, South Africa, they've shown that overseas voting is technically feasible and politically transformative. So by failing to include our diaspora, Nigeria risks looking like a democracy limited by geography rather than one empowered by its people. So it's very imperative that we seize the moment we are in. And it is something that we should approve with urgency. We have a very small window to do this, to make this a reality before the 2027 elections. And it's narrow but decisive, right? So I think we should do all the necessary legal framework must be completed. ENEC must be funded.
Good numbers that we can binge on, about 17 million. That is significant to, tilt any direction when it comes to any election anywhere in the world. So that's a significant number. When you talk about the remittances that we have record of, it's amazing, $20 billion a year. That's literally the amount that Dangote refinery was built with. So that's significant economically. So on all sides, there are great points to argue for diaspora voting. But let's talk about the people in diaspora themselves. When you aggregate interest, how much of enthusiasm is there to be interested in the electoral process from abroad? Can you hear me, sir? If you can unmute your device, I guess you're talking, but we can't hear you. So please unmute and maybe start again.
Please set it up big.
All right. So as soon as we get the gentleman, we'll get back to talk about the issue of diaspora voting. But he's raised some good point, Kayode. Okay, let's get back to you, sir. We couldn't hear you for a moment. Can you did you get my question first up?
Yeah, I heard your question. You asked how excited people are about voting. And I can tell you that people look forward to that possibility. I mean, Nigerian diaspora has been participating strongly, aside from the ability to vote. During elections, politicians travel to the US, to the UK, and other places to rally around support, to seek funding. And you see Nigerians commenting on social media, being interested. Some actually travel home just to vote. So imagine when this possibility is activated and people can actually go to designated polling units in foreign countries to vote. There is excitement. That's something people want to do. I mean, it's natural because Nigerians in diaspora send funds to homes and do all of that. And they even contribute to funding election in some form. So it is natural for every Nigerian in diaspora also to want to add his voice, to want to go, because if the wrong set of people are elected, it doesn't matter where you are. You have brothers at home, you have sisters at home, and there are many in diaspora who will be happy to come home if things are a lot better in the country. So yes, there is a lot of excitement about the possibility of diaspora voting. But and that's the reason why we need to make sure that it happens before the 2027 general election. Because if we don't do that, then we run the risk of continuing disenfranchising millions of Nigerians, and then we start looking forward to the next election cycle, which is not going to be very good for us. We have an opportunity to lock this in at this time. And there could never have been a better time for it. The time for debate is over. What we have now is time for action. And lawmakers, civil society, and the diaspora as well. We have a responsibility as well to work together to ensure millions of Nigerians finally have a voice in choosing their leaders. And Nigeria can, of course, become Africa's first truly global democracy. But we can't let this historic opportunity slip away.
Let's speak a bit more to the legal framework now. I wonder what component is there to ensure that the technology that will be deployed for diaspora voting will be fail-safe, because we've heard, even with the technology, particularly from the last elections, about glitches, about attempts to hack INEC's website. So what component is in the legislation that will ensure that indeed the integrity of results coming in from diaspora voting can be relied upon?
The truth is, we can make that happen if we have the political will, if we're really interested in making that happen. All right, there is technology available. I mean, other countries have tried that and it has worked. South Africa does that. That's an African country. Ghana does that. That's an African country. Kenya does that. How much more Nigeria? If we want to do that, and I believe that we do, we should be able to have a free and fair diaspora voting. It is for us to make sure that we have a timeline that we are all committed to, right? Of course, there has to be that deployment of technology, and we need to roll out secure platforms for voter registration, authentication, and vote transmission to prevent fraud and instill confidence. That has to be done. And we need to take things in phases, for example, all right? Beginning from now, between now and Q4 of 2025 to Q2 of 2026, our focus has to be Nigeria must consolidate the legal foundation for diaspora voting. That means fast track, third reading and of the bill, and then Senate's concurrence for constitutional amendment. And engaging, because I said it's a long legislative process as well, even aside from the technology, right? 2/3 of state legislatures still have to approve that, all right? So there are a lot of those that it has to be done. But if we can achieve that between Q4 of 2025 and Q2 of 2026, then we can move to another phase. That means preparing for diaspora voting, institutional readiness, which we can target from Q3 of 2026 to Q4 of 2026. And that's what we're talking about: budget allocation, pilot centers, partnership frameworks, like fund working groups between INEC, Foreign Affairs, and the National Identity Management Commission and diaspora organizations to manage data verification, which is part of part of the integrity you are talking about. All right. So we have that capability to do that. Right. And then in the phase 3, we now start looking at all of the how to actually make that happen, execution and oversight. So that and part of that will be deployment of technology. All right. Yeah. And of course, independent monitoring and evaluation. So the technology is there. It's happening in other African countries. And Nigeria can, by all means, do that.
It will be interesting to see how that plays out. But clearly, 17 million, that's a huge number. Of course, we'll have a very minute part of that who are maybe eligible to vote, over 18 and the rest, or like a substantial percentage of that. Don't let me say minute. But we have to thank you so much, Dr. Brian Reuben, for adding your voice to this. Thank you for joining us. You joined us alongside the 16th President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln. He's looking over your shoulder right now. But we have to thank you once again for your time and wish you the very best.
Thank you very much. It's nice talking with you. Thank you.